At 4:58 p.m., SpaceX's first V3 booster, B18, exploded at Massey test site. The shell ripped open, deformed like a crushed soda can, yet no fire erupted. Why no flames? SpaceX revealed the truth. This wasn't a fuel test. No propellant was loaded, no engines installed, just high-pressure gas testing with nitrogen and oxygen. So what could go so catastrophically wrong during a routine pressure check? Welcome to Space Update 24 Hours. Let's dive right in. The morning after revealed the full extent of the damage. As sunlight hit Starbase, photographers captured images that spread across the space community within minutes. The side of B18 facing the test tanks showed severe deformation. The metal hull collapsed inward as if crushed by an invisible fist. The Chinese in that region, those distinctive ridges running along Starship's exterior, were visibly damaged. But this was just the beginning. The opposite side told a far more disturbing story. A massive jagged gap had been torn through the booster's shell, right through the liquid oxygen tank section. The opening was large enough that engineers could see straight into the vehicle's interior. It looked less like a structural failure and more like something had violently erupted from within, forcing its way out through the steel. Yet somehow, against all odds, the booster remained standing upright. How was that even possible after such catastrophic damage? SpaceX moved quickly to address the growing speculation. Their first statement focused on what mattered most. No one was injured. Personnel always maintained safe distances during pressure tests, a protocol that proved crucial. The site was secured and teams were developing a safe re-entry plan. But the second update revealed the key detail everyone was waiting for. B18 had suffered an anomaly during gas system pressure testing, specifically testing conducted before the full structural proof test. No propellant had been loaded. The engines weren't even installed yet. This single fact explained everything about the unusual damage pattern. No fuel meant no fire, no cryogenic temperatures, no combustion, just pure mechanical failure under extreme pressure. SpaceX had been testing the new gas system introduced with the V3 upgrades. The vehicle was filled with high-pressure gas, most likely nitrogen and oxygen, to push the system to its design limits. Standard procedure before moving to structural pressurization tests, then eventually to full cryogenic trials with actual propellants. Except this time, something in that gas system couldn't handle the pressure. But what exactly failed? The evidence points to multiple possible culprits. Consider the COPVS, composite overwrapped pressure vessels. These high-pressure tanks sit above the engine compartment, near the Chinese, precisely where the most severe damage occurred. As pressure built inside the gas system during testing, these vessels would have been under tremendous stress. What if one of them ruptured? The sudden release of compressed gas could have created a pressure wave powerful enough to blow through the liquid oxygen tank wall and tear open the outer shell. The COPVS might not be the original failure point, but they could have amplified the initial rupture into the catastrophic breach we witnessed. There's another theory gaining traction among engineers. What if the gas system line itself failed first? A high-pressure pipe rupturing near the COPVS would send shock waves through the surrounding hardware. That initial failure could trigger a domino effect. The shock hits the COPVS, they rupture or release pressure suddenly, and the combined force destroys everything in its path. One small pipe failure cascading into total structural destruction. Right now, these remain educated guesses based on SpaceX's limited early statements and photographic evidence. The company made it clear, their teams need time to investigate before they can identify the exact root cause with certainty. Until then, we wait. But one thing isn't speculation. B18's fate is sealed. The damage is too extensive for any realistic repair. That massive rupture through the tank section, the internal deformation visible in daylight photos, the compromised structural integrity, this booster won't contribute to any future testing or missions. Lift support equipment was already spotted arriving at Massey, which means SpaceX is preparing to transport B18 back to Mega Bay, or possibly the Rocket Garden for detailed investigation. After that, almost certainly retirement and scrapping. Replacing an entire tank section or major structural components simply isn't feasible at this scale. Here's where the timeline becomes painful. SpaceX spent nearly 6 months assembling B18, from May through early November. Half a year dedicated to stacking the first V3 booster, building anticipation with each new upgrade revealed. And now it's gone before a single cryogenic test, before engines were even installed. Does this indicate a fundamental design flaw in the V3 architecture? Many observers are asking exactly that question. The fear is that if the very first prototype fails this early, perhaps the entire upgrade package has systemic issues. But that perspective misses how rocket development actually works. Early failures are normal, expected, even necessary. They reveal problems before they can cause disasters during flight. The real question isn't whether B18 failed, it's what SpaceX learns from this failure and how quickly they adapt. The immediate impact, though, is undeniable. B19, the next V3 booster, hasn't been stacked yet. There's no backup ready to continue Flight 12 preparations. If B18 took 6 months to stack, even with the team's experience speeding up the process, B19 can't realistically be completed before year's end. Add in the time needed to finish investigating B18's failure, implement any necessary design changes, then conduct B19's complete testing campaign. Several weeks minimum, possibly months. Flight 12, the highly anticipated first V3 mission originally targeted for January? Those chances just dropped dramatically. We're looking at delays that ripple through the entire Starship manifest. Every mission after Flight 12 gets pushed back. Goals that were scheduled for early 2025 now slide into spring, maybe summer. And this matters beyond just SpaceX's internal timeline. The Artemis 3 mission depends on Starship HLS, the lunar lander variant. SpaceX is already racing against Blue Origin, whose own lunar lander program has been advancing faster than many expected. Every delay in Starship development gives competitors time to close the gap. The pressure is real, the stakes are high, and B18's explosion just made everything harder. Yet here's the perspective that matters. This happened during a ground test, not during flight. SpaceX caught this failure in the safest possible environment. No launch pad destruction, no mission failure, no public setback requiring months of investigation and regulatory review. Remember Ship 36 earlier this year? That explosion during testing was arguably worse than B18. The community predicted months of delays. Instead, SpaceX analyzed the problem, implemented fixes, and bounced back faster than anyone thought possible. The work continues. At Massey, every system requires careful inspection. The booster stand, the quick disconnect system, all surrounding infrastructure. Teams must verify nothing was damaged or stressed beyond safe operating limits. Any issues get fixed immediately to prevent compounding delays. At the production site, Ship 39 becomes critical. With B18 out of commission, SpaceX cannot afford problems with S39. Engineers are likely reviewing every system twice, specifically examining anything similar to what failed on B18. Once Massey is cleared, S39 moves there for its own testing campaign. No room for error. Work on B19 needs to start immediately. Any components not related to B18's failure should be prepared for stacking. SpaceX can even begin stacking operations inside Megabay while the investigation continues. Parallel development to minimize schedule impact. Every day saved now matters. Construction timelines for new facilities like Gigabay must stay on track. These infrastructure upgrades aren't just about current missions. They're about future production rates and launch cadence. The debut of Pad 2 will probably slip due to B18's incident, but completion work should continue so it's ready the moment a booster's available. Meanwhile, transformation work on Pad 1 accelerates. SpaceX recently removed the final OLM leg and shortened the chopsticks, clear signals that upgrades continue despite setbacks. The coming weeks will test SpaceX's ability to balance investigation, recovery, and forward momentum across Starbase. And while SpaceX deals with B18, other players keep moving. Rocket Lab just completed another Electron mission from New Zealand, announced only 5 hours before launch. That short notice points to a customer with tight timelines and strict secrecy requirements. The mission, called Follow My Speed, carried a single confidential satellite for an anonymous commercial client. But the real story is Rocket Lab's cadence. This marked their second launch in just 48 hours. Before this orbital mission, they'd launched the suborbital HASTE mission on November 18th. 2 launches, 2 days. 18 missions total this year when you count both orbital and suborbital, 15 orbital missions specifically. Every single one successful. That's a new annual record for Electron, cementing its position as the world's most frequently flown small orbital launch vehicle. 76 total launches now for Rocket Lab. That number exceeds several long-established competitors. At this pace, the 100 launch milestone approaches rapidly, and next year brings Neutron, their larger reusable rocket. While SpaceX wrestles with V3 development challenges, competitors aren't standing still. Here's what B18's explosion really tells us. SpaceX caught a critical failure during ground testing, not during flight. No launch pad destroyed, no mission lost, no regulatory shutdown. This is exactly how rocket development should work. Find problems early, fix them, move forward. Flight 12 will be delayed. The V3 debut shifts from January to later in 2025. But SpaceX has proven their ability to bounce back from setbacks faster than anyone expects. Remember Ship 36 earlier this year? Everyone predicted months of delays. SpaceX recovered in weeks. B18 revealed a flaw before it could cause a real disaster. That's not failure. That's smart engineering. The next chapter begins with B19, Ship 39, and the lessons learned from this test. We'll be tracking every development at Starbase. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment with your thoughts on the V3 delays. Subscribe to New Space Review and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We bring you the real story behind every SpaceX development. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.